Alright, so as promised, I'm going to be sharing with you a simple analogy that has really helped me in being able to stay committed towards my business and has really helped me in not only doing it for myself but to help other people who I've been training, teaching, and working with on a one-to-one basis. But when it comes to this analogy, it's just going to make so much sense for you to the point where not only are you going to love the idea of commitment, but you're also going to see it as being so freaking simple as to what you have to do in order to become more committed to whatever it is your main endeavor. And so when we're looking at commitment, the way that I want you to view it, and I kind of hinted at this in one of the first videos as well, is that commitment is something that we find within relationships. And it is the foundation of every relationship. So if there is a relationship or an encounter that you have with another romantic partner, then without any kind of commitment, there will be a very small chance of success within the relationship. And the reason why is simply because it's so easy to go back and pretend as though you were there as a mistake, because there's no skin in the game, right? There's nothing that you have as a fear of loss. And there's a very psychological way that we can go into this in terms of the science of commitment, which I'm gonna dive into in another video as well. But when it comes to getting that skin in the game, it's the equivalent of you when you have kind of started to ask certain questions of a person's family that you're going to get married to. For example, you like a girl or you like a guy. Traditionally speaking, it would be the guy that would do this, but he would really, go and speak to all of the family members of the woman, and then from there gain approval. And then once he's done that and he's made that little bit of a commitment, he will then go and buy out a wedding ring. So he's not only committed in terms of keeping some accountability within a community, but now it's like he's had to go and buy an engagement ring, which he might spend thousands on. So if you've spent money and invested money into a particular thing, now it's restricted the freedom to go and spend on other things. So you see how the commitment is just building up over time. And then the next thing that he does is that he proposes, and there's now a verbal bond and agreement that's taken place, which is the final thing that actually happens when it comes to making the engagement with another person. And then after that, you might have an engagement party, which kind of solidifies the entire thing, because you have other people around you, which creates that next level accountability and community around the commitment as well. And so we can really learn a lot from the success of relationships, and how the majority of relationships, if they are to become successful, we see that there tends to be an engagement that takes place to follow up with a marriage. And so this is it. If you're struggling right now to stay committed within your business venture, then chances are it's because you haven't had an engagement. You haven't had that process of, number one, going out and telling other people what it is that you're doing, not asking necessarily for permission, but for support in the thing that you're going to do. And then once you've got the support, it's like, all right, cool. Now I need to make a commitment with how I'm going to invest my money, because through investing my money, I'm no longer going to be able to spend on other things as much as I possibly could. And the thing about engagements is that a lot of people, when they buy that engagement ring, like, that's a huge chunk of their savings. People, when they commit to having a marriage as well and having a wedding, like, that's a huge chunk of their savings that they go into, typically, because the average person only has around about 5,000 in savings up to the age of 30, but marriages tend to cost up to 10,000. So it's like they go all the way to zero just to make this commitment. Think about that. So when it comes to making your commitment to a business is supposed to have a bigger startup capital than a marriage. So if you're looking at your marriage and you're spending more on your marriage than you are on your business, you're more committed to your marriage than you are your business. And you want to make it the reverse. Like one of the quotes that I like to mention to my students as well is that Um, it's about business before pleasure, as Biggie Small says. Business before pleasure. Who do you know that does it better? So when it comes to you committing to your business, that wants to be the precursor to anything that you do in relationships. That's my belief. And when it comes to you know, you doing this in a way where you're going to be able to stay the most loyal, the same way that you can do in a marriage, then you have to commit first with not only the support, the other people, but also commit in terms of the money that you're going to put down and the agreement that you make finally. So there has to be a verbal agreement that you make with another entity. I believe that that's super important. Some sort of contract that's in place, a written contract as well, where you know, you can't really go back into it unless you go through certain loopholes. And so that's the thing about commitment as well, where the thing that makes it really powerful is if you think about the divorce, a lot of people stay in marriages not because they are actually happy in the marriage. It's more so because of how difficult it is to get a divorce and the cost and the pain of going through a divorce, which is one of the things that stops people from going into the marriage in the first place. But when you're in, it's a very powerful device to keep you in. And the thing about being successful in your business is that if you give yourself a longer time period to actually work in the business, then the chances and the rate of your success will automatically go up simply because there's more time available and opportunity for you to work. I mean, think about it like this. Just look at the numbers. If you give yourself 1 day to succeed in a business versus giving yourself 100 years, like, which one do you think is going to be the more likely outcome of you being able to succeed? I mean, it's plain obvious. If you give yourself 1 day, you barely even got time to set anything up. But if you give yourself 100 years, that's 100 years of trial, error, mistakes, networking, improvements, constant growth, and eventual succeeding. So this is it. So the powerful thing about having that procedure in place, which allows you to you know, make it difficult to get out of the relationship, like a divorce, for example, like that's super powerful. And if you have the exact same thing that you put into your business, something that's like a break clause, which makes it super difficult, like a contract is a great thing to have, for example, but there's so many things you can start getting creative about of how you can really commit, then you are not even going to want to get out of the business because of how painful it's going to be for you. Which is something that takes a lot of bravery with the key of courage, but once you've actually allowed yourself to make that level of commitment, then the chances of you succeeding like go all the way to the moon. And the reason why is because I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors who was a 9-figure earner, and he was saying that he basically made me feel as though there was no way that I wasn't going to succeed. And before then, I did not have that level of belief. And so he said something that was really simple to me. He just asked me a simple question. He was like, none of this really matters anyway, because I was kind of complaining about certain things that weren't necessarily working the way that I wanted them to work. And he was giving me solutions, he was helping me out. And then he ended it by just kind of saying, doesn't really matter because you're never going to quit, are you? And I was just like, wow, he's right. I am never going to quit. So if I'm never going to quit, then how can I fail? And so there is a saying that saying that winners never quit and quitters never win. But the same thing works in terms of you failing, is that if you never quit, then you can never fail. You can only fail if you quit. That's the only way that you can fail. And so the key to guaranteeing your success is to have that highest level of commitment so that there is nothing that can stop you from ever quitting. And that is the key right there. So yeah, hope that you've had some breakthroughs in this video, and I would highly recommend watching it again if you need to. But yeah, we're gonna dive into in the next few videos not only the science of commitment and going all in, but also how you can actually start applying this, so that with this new understanding you can gain that wisdom and apply this so that you never quit and you have the fruits of having a long-lasting business. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video, and we'll take it from there.